Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And today, of course, is the 19th of October. It's the day you should have been going and voting in Indy Ref 2. The shame of it is, it didn't come, because the Supreme Court said the SNP don't have the authority to call it. So even if you had it, it would have been meaningless, would have had no legal standing, and the British government, the UK government, would have just gone, well, thanks for that. Millions wasted on nothing. Good old Supreme Court, I say. Nicola Sturgeon, she got the Supreme Court ruling, stabbed her tiny feet and realised that the jig was up and she couldn't actually get away with it. And even if she'd have gone ahead and just said, no, we'll still have the referendum, like I say, it would have been, only the largest opinion poll ever taken. It would have had nothing more than that. And given the weather, I would suggest also that the turnout would be exceedingly low and fall below the threshold for legality anyway. It's all conspiring against them, isn't it? Anyway, on this day, you have, of course, Beryl has gone to Sir Keir Starmer, Stephen Flynn, a man who's watching his whole world collapse about him, and he's begging Sir Keir Starmer for Labour to give the SNP an independence referendum. And we'll take a look at this story and see why it probably isn't going to happen. Here goes. So, desperate Stephen Flynn pleads with Sir Keir Starmer to give SNP an independence referendum because no one else is going to. Now, the thing, of course, is if, as Stephen Flynn thinks, Labour do win the next election, it could be that their majority is the Scottish seats, because they're expected to win quite a few, And if it's a case that if Scotland was independent and Labour loses those seats, and thus the majority, then there's no way on earth Sir Keir is going to give Scotland an independence referendum. He needs the seats, doesn't he? So it's a non-starter. It's madness. Anyway, the SNP's Westminster leader is is so confident of his party's new Skexit strategy that which is the one where we win the maximum seats, we win the majority of seats. Well, he's so confident of that, he's already gone to plead with the UK leader, UK Labour leader, to spark negotiations to break up the UK. Yeah, so he knows that he isn't going. Oh yeah, we've got this brilliant idea. Now it's bound to work. It's never going to fail. Majority of seats, and then we've got it. And then they've looked at it and went, we ain't going to get it, are we? No. Okay, so let me get on bended knee in front of Sir Keir Starmer. Kiss his arse, honestly. Anyway, the SNP's Westminster leader has made a last gasp plea to Sir Keir Starmer to allow an independence referendum. Beryl insisted that the UK Labour leader had to accept the democratic will of Scotland if he replaces Rishi Sunak as Prime Minister. Well, the democratic will of Scotland is to remain in the Union, and I'm pretty sure Sir Keir will be happy to oblige. In a further sign that the Nationalists are getting desperate to appease their support, the Aberdeen South MP attempted to cajole potentially the next leader of the UK into bending to the SNP's will and giving them a legally binding vote. However, he has previously been told there would be no way a poll to break up the UK would be handed to them, whoever was in number 10. Of course it won't. Nobody wants to be seen to be the one that breaks up the UK. And that's how it is. But they can't accept that. And the other thing they can't accept is, reality. The fact that they are not the majority voice. The majority voice is pro-union. He said the most pressing issue with this plan is that they need whoever is in the hot seat in London to agree to this. And the unionist parties have previously said they would not do this. The nationalist bargaining position will also be weakened if they lose a significant number of MPs, which the polls suggest they will. They're likely to lose an absolute rake. They could be down realistically to about 18, but some say that with and Curtis himself, John Curtis said, if the tactical voting works, if Labour vote for Tories in a strong Tory seat and Tories vote for Labour in a strong Labour seat where they are the challengers to a sitting SNP, the SNP could be down to as few as 6 MPs. That is not a mandate for a referendum, dear heart. Anyway, Mr. Flynn attempted to lay the challenge at the door of Sir Keir, as he insisted the SNP had added more meat to the bones of a potential referendum bid at their conference in Aberdeen, Well, he obviously attended a different conference to the one everyone else saw. Everyone else saw a bunch of very desperate people making up plans on the back of an envelope, hoping to God something would stick. Anyway, he's speaking to Sky News. He said, "What we would like to see is the power of an independence referendum transferred from Westminster to Holyrood." You do that, they'd be having a referendum every 6 months going, and do you want independence now? And now? And now? How about now? And they just have one every 6 months until they got it, and then they'd never have another one. So it's good that it isn't going up to Scotland. Anyway, he said he backed. Oh, he moved on there. He said he backed Labour as looking increasingly likely to win the next general election. I think everyone kind of sees that now. It's not quite a fait accompli, but it's certainly motioning towards that direction, isn't it? He said, and he made his plea to UK Labour. He said, if he believes himself to be a Democrat and the Scottish National Party wins a majority of seats in the general election next year, which I'm very confident we will, he's off his meds again, isn't he? He needs to heed the democratic view of the people of Scotland. Well, let's keep him to that line. Let's hold Beryl to that line. Because if they fail to win the majority of seats, then that will be the democratic will of the people of Scotland. The one that he's so proud to say that he wants followed. And so if they don't win the majority, then they will have to accept that that is their referendum and that they've lost it and that they need to say, OK, the people of Scotland don't want to be independent. Some do, of course, but the majority don't. Anyway, Mr Flynn has thrown his backing behind a different motion at conference, which would have seen the SNP seeking to negotiate a break-up of the UK if they won the most seats. But this was changed to the majority, following a backlash from supporters who said that it would not be legitimate. Even in the SNP, they said it would not be legitimate if they only won the most seats and not the majority of seats. But even then, if you're not getting the majority of the electorate, it's still not a mandate. The mandate can only be the majority of the electorate, and that is never going to happen. He was also questioned about his former colleague, Dr. Lisa Cameron, who claimed that the party was like a cult. He claimed that he did not recognise this complaint in any way, shape or form. That's because he's been completely brainwashed by the cult. And then he added that some of the threats she has received are disgusting, which I think we all agree. And I mean, I will give him his due. If he's even acknowledging that and saying it's disgusting, that's fair enough. I won't attack him on that. The Straven and East Kilbride MP was forced to shut her office this week. Did the story on this after she set a death threat and also being on the receiving end of abuse from nasty Nats because she quit the party and joined the Tories. And yet we did the one about Anam Kazar who left Labour and joined the SNP, and nobody said anything because it's only the Nats that are the nasty party. She said she was bullied out the SNP after she stood up for the victim of sex pest MP Patrick Grady, the toucher-upper of other people's children, because that's how we describe him every time. Patrick Grady, half man, half thumb. Anyway, there we go. So, Beryl, bending knee, kissing ass, begging, please, 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 give us independence, because it's the only way we can get it is if you give it to us, because we don't have the support at home in Scotland for it. Loser. I'm coming up. So imagine, let's say, sometime next May, towards the end of next May, and you've had the election. It turns out that Labour have done particularly well, and they have formed a government. They've got a majority, good majority. Give them 100 seats or whatever. I don't know how many it'll be. Could be more. But let's say they've got a good 100-seat majority, something like that. And then Beryl comes up and he says, look, you've got a really strong majority. You've got this huge majority. Losing your 30 seats in Scotland isn't going to affect you. You'll still have your big majority, in the remainder. And he said, it wouldn't cost you anything. Please, 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 can we have a referendum? Keir Starmer is likely, first of all, straight off the bat, just to say no, regardless. He also will think, I don't want to be the Prime Minister who breaks up the union. He'll also say that why should I force the MPs who we've just paid a lot of money and backed and supported to win those seats? Why should we throw them to the wolves? Why should we throw them out of a job? There's all sorts of things going on. There'll be deals. You've got to remember there's several Scottish MPs that are pretty high up in the party, you know, what are you going to do with them? You know, do you want to cast them out as well, given their history and role? You know, there's a long tradition of Scottish MPs rising very highly in the Labour Party. You know, John Smith, Tony Blair, Gordon Brown, just named 3 recent ones, you know. And so it's not going to be very easy for Keir Starmer to even say, OK, look, we'll give you the referendum, even if he knows that the SNP won't even win the referendum. But it's the signal it sends out that you're willing to do it. And it shows a weakness almost. So it isn't going to happen, is it? Anyway, poor old Beryl, bended knee, kissing arse, begging, please, 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 because it's the only way the SNP are ever going to get it, which means they're never going to get it. I'll stop. Thank you very much for watching. Hope this has been an enjoyable one for you. Do please hit the subscribe button, ring that bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and remember, the SNP, the party of losers. Bye.